So it's the first day of April. Happy April Fool's Day to everybody. And you know what that means? It means that it's time for a monthly wrap up. So I read finished three books in the month of March, and I soft DNF'd one. It's my first DNF of the year, and it's a soft one because I might go back to it, but for right now, I'm probably not. So let's get into it. First up is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I ended up rating this 4 stars. It's pretty interesting. So the basic premise of this book is that it is essentially supposed to tell the story of Ted Bundy, who is a very famous serial unaliver, but it's supposed to tell it from the perspective of some of the victims and their families, but in a narrative fashion, so like in a fiction narrative fashion. So it's not nonfiction, but it definitely touches on topics that are similar to what actually happened in the cases, and it's really interesting. So I actually really recommend it to people. The audiobook was also very good if you are interested in that, but yeah, overall, it was a pretty good read. The next book I read was Missing White Woman by Kelly Garrett. I ended up rating this 4.25 stars, and it was a really good book because of the fact that last year I read a ton of thrillers. Like, the vast majority of the books that I read were thrillers, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this year I wanted to make sure that I was diversifying a bit more with what I was reading, and so I've kind of been forcing myself to read more stuff that's not traditional thrillers, if that makes sense, which is also why I've been branching out a bit more into like fantasy and other things. But this was really good to kind of like dip my toes back into a thriller. And like, it was just a very interesting premise. Basically, this lady, she's at an Airbnb with her boyfriend, and she wakes up one morning, he's gone, and there's a dead woman on the ground in their Airbnb, and it kind of just unfolds from there. And it's a very, very interesting read, and I highly recommend it. So, yeah. And then the final book that I actually completed this month was Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Now, I ended up reading this book 3.75 stars, and I liked it. It was very interesting in the way it was written. It's very similar to the book Helpmeet, if anybody's ever read that, in the way that it's written and kind of like the general concept of what's happening and like the devotion that one partner shows to another partner in times of like extreme medical concern. It's very, very interesting. The general premise is that one of the main characters sends her wife off. Well, she doesn't send her off. She's part of some sort of mission. And this mission, they're going in a submarine, and basically the mission takes a little bit longer than expected, and it kind of just unfolds from there. It isn't told in a linear fashion, so there's a lot of jumping around with time in it, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, it is a good book, and I do recommend it. It does have a very decent audiobook that I would recommend. I like the way the narration was in it, so that one was great, for sure. And then sadly, the book that I have soft DNF'd this month, which does mean I will probably try to get back to it at some point, but I don't think that I am in the headspace or the reading kind of like space to properly enjoy it right now, and I would rather step away from it and then potentially pick it up in the future than like try to just read through it and then just give it a worse rating than it maybe deserves. Is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which I know that there's a lot of people out there that really enjoy that book, so that's another reason why I'm trying really hard to give it a chance. But so far, I just am not fully invested, I guess, is the biggest thing. I'm not fully invested in the characters or the plot. So it's kind of been a bit of a difficult read for me because of that, and I'm thinking that it's just because I'm not in the space to be reading that right now. Like, I'm not in the reading space where, like, I want to read something similar to the way that it's written. And so I'm just going to put it essentially soft DNFing it / pausing it for right now, but I may or may not get back to it. That's why I'm not officially saying that it's a DNF, because I plan on trying maybe, but it's also very up in the air. But yeah, those were the books that I read in the month of March. And what did you guys read? I'm just curious to hear. And yeah, I hope you have a good, oh my God, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.